Technical difficulties. Alright. We're live, ladies and germs. Yes. It is the first race review of 2025 in January. Usually the Fuel's new season begins in February, but not this time around. Because tonight, even though it's, one day afterwards, we're going to be doing a review of the 2025 Rolex 24 at Daytona. And this is officially my first IMSA review here on the Fuel, so should be good. So without further ado, let's do an intro and get this thing started. This video is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Stay tuned until after the video to learn how you can save 10% off of your order. I forgot about that part. Let's try that again. Alright, one more time from the top. Alright, kind of background music. Well, it is the episode 301, so track number 1. There we go. It's been a minute since I've done a Fuel review. A couple months. But we're live and we're doing it right now. And no NASCAR bullshit. Especially considering they made the decision to not change the playoff format for this year. Yeah, fuck you. That's what I gotta say about that. And that's probably something I'm going to be talking about on Burnt Rubber. My god, dude. What? What is it? Yeah, it's been a minute since I've done one of these reviews. But, yeah, some technical difficulties. Anyway, Pepsi. By the way, Pepsi, they just came out with a new flavor. Well, I shouldn't say new flavor, kind of a new flavor of an existing flavor called Wild Cherry and Cream. It's actually really good. It tastes like a Pepsi ice cream float. And I love me some ice cream floats. But anyway. Yeah, the whole NASCAR not changing the playoff shit. I mean, is it really a surprise at this point? It is something that I'll probably talk about on a future episode of Burnt Rubber. It probably won't be tomorrow or Wednesday night because I'm planning on hosting a Trendy Duty interview 3 times. Oh, you mean the intro 3 times? Yeah, well, I completely forgot about the frickin' popping up the logo after the music ends. And it's just like, ugh. I really am a little bit rusty, aren't I? Oh, well. Yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, I'm a little bit tired because just been resting after doing my new full-time job. Not the one that I started the year with. This is something different. But anyway, I'll talk about that later. But anywho, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what this is about. The Rolex 24 at Daytona. Now, here's the thing with these IMSA reviews. A lot of the long races are not going to really, at least this race in particular, it's not going to really have a lot of the in-depth type of shit because, I mean, it's a 24-hour race. And I mean, there was no way I was going to be able to watch this whole thing live. I mean, there was just no way. I did watch quite a bit of this race. There were a few parts in the second day from about 7 hours to go to maybe 3 hours ago that I didn't catch a whole lot of because I was working at the time. But I still caught a good chunk of this race. And there were some parts where the race was kind of it was just kind of like, it was kind of one of those things where it's like not a whole lot's going on. But I mean, it's a 24-hour race. You're going to have that. You know what I mean? There won't be any race stats shown for this race because they don't have it up on Racing Reference yet, which is kind of dumb considering the fact that, I mean, you would think a series owned by NASCAR would have, you know, some priority in that regard, but you know, it is what it is. I did see, I think there was like 14 cautions in this race, which for a 24-hour race is still pretty damn good because, I mean, that translates to like one caution every 2 hours. Even though IMSA's cautions take an ungodly amount of time for whatever reason. Yeah, that's basically one of the negatives for IMSA is at times they take way too long to throw a caution, and when they do throw a caution, they take way too long to get back going again. So that's one of the negatives. But a big negative for this year's edition of the Rolex 24, and a lot of people were pretty pissed off about this, was the fact that they paved over the grass at the Le Mans chicane. So a lot of people were pretty pissed off about that. Now they said that they're going to look at things in the future, you know, making it, you know, kind of look like what it used to do. And it's like, well, if that's the case, just put turf in. I mean, if you're that afraid of cars getting airborne when they hit the grass, which is the whole, I think the Ryan Preece accident was the reason why they decided to pave over the backstretch grass, which from a safety aspect I can kind of understand that, but I mean, you basically take away what makes the Le Mans chicane so iconic. So at the very least, if you want to do it for safety reasons, then put turf in where the grass used to be at that chicane. You know, not everything has to be about fucking safety. You know what I mean? Because I mean, it's whatever. But anyway. Let's start with the positives. There were 61 cars in this race between all four classes. I think they said it was 12 in GTP, which was the top class, 12 in LMP2, 15 in GTD Pro, and 22 in GTD, which is just crazy. That is a crazy number of cars. 18 different manufacturers were represented in this race. I mean, if that's not a sign of a healthy series, then I don't know what is. I mean, NASCAR, they're struggling to try to bring in a fourth manufacturer. Now, IndyCar has 2. V8 Supercars has 2. And then you look over at IMSA and they have 18. I mean, when you look at things on the whole, from the looks of it, sports car racing seems to be on the rise because, especially IMSA, safety is always number one, but sometimes it can ruin the racing. Yeah, exactly. This is case in point. But when you look at things from the broad perspective of motorsports, it really seems like sports car racing is on the rise right now, especially IMSA. Because when you look at IMSA last year, they were seeing record attendance at a lot of their events. Interest, not only from fans, but from race teams and manufacturers, seems to be at an all-time high. Like they added Indianapolis last year and made that basically like a fifth crown jewel event basically for the Michelin Endurance Cup. Because before, the 4 races for the Michelin Endurance Cup was Daytona, Sebring, which is the next race, which won't be for another month and a half. So we got another long wait in between IMSA races, but there's only 11, and they're huge endurance races, so, you know. But, yeah, the 4 races of the Michelin Endurance Cup before last year was the Rolex 24, 12 hours of Sebring, Salem 6 hours at the Glen, and then Motu Petit Le Mans at the end of the year. Those were the big 4 for the Michelin Endurance Cup. And then last year they decided, you know what, let's go to Indianapolis and see what happens. And Indianapolis, despite having rain midway through, actually turned out to be a pretty good event. So we'll have to wait and see what happens this year. But, I mean, it's pretty good. But anyways, back to the Rolex 24. So, you'll hear several driver names, but I'm basically just going by the team because it's a team driver thing. That's what sports car racing is. It's not attributed to just one driver. But the number 24 team, Ray Hall, Letterman Lanigan Racing BMW, took the pole for the overall. So the race begins, and there were several cars that had mechanical problems early on. There was the Pfaff Motorsports number 9 that was having wheel nut issues. Like, they came in on a pit stop, and they couldn't get the wheel nut off of the left front, I believe. I think it was actually both front tires that they were having problems with. So they had to work to get those off. And then the number 63 car, which was Automobili Lamborghini Squadra Corsa, they fell out of the race on like hour 2 with terminal engine issues, which, man, doesn't that burn your ass when you put in all that time and effort to get a car prepared for the Rolex 24 and you barely run 2 hours? That would suck a big one. And then the number 75 Express AMG went behind the wall with an overheating issue because apparently the water pump belt got knocked off. Yeah. Let's just say I know about that kind of thing on my Mustang. So I remember one year the serpentine belt got knocked off and it overheated in a big way. Thankfully it didn't blow the engine up, but yeah. The serpentine belt, and for those that don't know, the serpentine belt runs the water pump and the power steering. So turning that bitch, not exactly the easiest thing in the world, because it's like steering a freight train. You gotta put all your effort into turning that damn wheel, because without power steering, it just does not want to turn. And it is a pain in the ass. But what happened with my car, the belt didn't snap. One of the pulley wheels broke. Yeah. So in addition to getting a new belt, I had to get a pulley wheel replaced. Although in this case with the 75 car, it could have been a snap belt, or it could be a case of like a piece of tire rubber basically came up off the track, went up inside the engine compartment and knocked the belt off. It's happened before. So that pretty much ruined their race. So the guy driving the 24 car, which was Vanthor, there were actually 2 Vanthors in this race. He nearly bent the 24 car from the race lead while making a pit stop. He actually was coming into his pit stall, and instead of turning the car perpendicular to the wall, he basically goes in at an angle like this, and damn near totals the 24. And he actually ended up getting a penalty as well. I can't remember what it was, but there were several drivers that got drive-through penalties. Then we had a caution on lap number 76. They managed to complete 781 laps in this race this year, which that's a lot of friggin' laps. But Hunter McElroy has a tire lockup in the International Horseshoe and goes straight into the tire barriers. And this was during hour number 3. So we actually went quite a while before we got a caution. Going to hour 5, and there was good racing between all 4 classes. This is probably the best hour. Well, one of the best hours of racing that we saw. Another caution during hour 6 on lap 188. Andy Lally in the number 44 Magnus Racing machine comes to a stop in turn 1. There was fluid pouring out from under the car, so it looked like a terminal mechanical failure. It's a shame because this was probably Andy Lally's last race, because he's going to become president of... Oh, shit. Let me look it up real quick. Because he just took presidency of something. What the hell does he do now? Let me look it up real quick. Oh yeah, he became the president of Trans Am. That's what it is. So he's basically retiring from sports car racing because he has basically become the president of Trans Am, which is crazy. Of course, he's 49 years old, so he is kind of getting up there in age. But it is a bit of a shame that his run came to an end like that. But that's the way that the motorsports world works sometimes. And there was another caution before this. That was for the 93 car. Alex Palou was actually driving the car at the time. And his car suffered a left rear suspension failure. So that was fun. There were actually several cars during this race that suffered suspension failures. And some were attributing it to maybe the curbs at the Le Mans chicane that was doing that. The new curbs that they put in to denote, where the track limits are. But start of hour 7, we had 3 wide for the lead on the restart. Some of the restarts were pretty crazy, to say the least. And then you had Komu Kobayashi, who was in the number 40 car. He takes the lead at the beginning of hour 7. We had a caution on hour number 8, which was lap 238, which... the 007 Heart of Racing Team car loses a wheel in the infield section, so that's always fun. And it was also during this point that we had that big wreck going into the infield section, which took out several good cars in multiple classes. So, yeah, that was big junk. Wasn't as big as the MX-5 Cup Race 2 start, which took out like half the field. That was insane shit. So at this point we had the GTD Pro battle for the lead, which is between the number 65 car for Multimatic Racing, I believe it's called, and then number 69 called Get Speed at the beginning of hour number 10. And then in GTP, which was the lead class, you had Jack Aiken in the 31, and he was on the back bumper of Nick Tandy in the number 7 Porsche Penske machine. And then you had the 24 car not far behind the both of them. And then After they make pit stops, the 31 actually beat the 7 off of pit road during hour number 10. Then you had the number 81, which was being driven by Thomas Neubauer at the time. He went straight in the International Horseshoe and lightly hit the tire barrier, but was able to keep going. Then we had a caution on lap 313, which was an hour 10. 36 Asele Ulick gets spun at the exit of the Le Mans chicane. Actually, he spun at the Le Mans chicane because I think he had something happen to the car. I think it was another suspension issue. And then the number 48 Paul Miller Racing car went behind the wall, and it was involved in the big crash earlier, and then I guess it just gave up the ghost. We had a big crash in hour 11 when the race contending car, the 31 Cadillac Whelen machine, basically it looked like it lost the suspension too, and there was an onboard camera as it was going by some way. You could see sparks coming out from underneath the car, and it was wobbling and wobbling, and all of a sudden, boom, and into the wall it went. It was being driven by Frederick Vesti at the time, and that was a hard hit into the outside wall. He was okay, but the car was basically donezo. It was, yeah. And then there were several cars that were put in the penalty box for improper wave bys. I guess they went by the pace car without proper permission. Making its presence known during this race was the number 91 Trackhouse car. Yes, the same Trackhouse that you see in NASCAR. And it was being driven by Shane Van Gisbergen at this point, SVG. And also driving it was Scott McLaughlin, fellow Aussie, who drives for IndyCar. And also driving it was some guy named Connor Zilic. In case you didn't know, that was sarcasm. He did have a little no-no mistake near the end of the race. He spun himself out going into turn 1. And he actually spun another car out too. And I think he ended up finishing 9th. And he was actually pretty disappointed in himself for that one. It's like, man, we had a shot at the podium and I fucked it. So at this point we were having a very long green flag run. It really stretched the field out with about 7 hours remaining in the race. Then you had the number 6 of Kevin Estre passing teammate Felipe Nasser in the number 7. Both of them are Porsche Penske cars to retake the overall lead. And then it kind of stalled out a little bit there. Of course, this was the part where I wasn't really able to watch all that much because I was working at the time. With 4.5 hours remaining, there was a battle for the lead in GTD Pro with the 1 and 4 teams going at it. And it was around this point where you had that little schmozzle between the yellow Corvette racing teams and I think it was the 48 car for Paul Miller Racing basically being a nuisance, and that eventually led to the thumbnail that you see with a guy basically flipping the 48 car off as they were going down the front stretch. I mean, you knew that was going to be the thumbnail. I mean, it's obvious. Then I guess the two of them basically teamed up to get payback on the 48. And then there was not some nice things said about the driver of that car at the time either. So, yeah, drama. Big time drama. So we have a great battle for the overall lead between the number 7 of Nasser and the 24 RLL car Van Thor, who was back in the car at this point. And then a 6 of Estre had caught up to him, and Estre goes by Van Thor for second, which puts well, actually, before that, he actually took second, but then he kind of shortcut it was determined to have shortcut the Le Mans chicane, although it looked like he was trying to avoid a car that was going in. But he was forced to give the position back, and then eventually he retook that position later on without any issues. Then the 99 car in LMP2, which was the dominant car of the race in LMP2, had a mechanical issue, and it knocked him out with just over an hour remaining in the race. They said it was probably a battery issue, but man, when you have a car that dominant and then you have a mechanical issue within sight of the checkered flag, man, you want to talk about heartbreak. And then we have one last caution right at the beginning of the final hour. The 45 car in GTD has a left rear tire issue, or left rear wheel issue actually, and comes to a stop coming out of the infield, basically getting ready to go into Daytona Turn 1. There was some pretty major contact on the start, and the 24 car actually got into the back of another car, which severely damaged the nose of the car, and he had a pretty significant tire rub and basically had to come to pit road to get the nose replaced. So that took him out of the running for the win. A great battle in GTD Pro. Then Rexy, very popular car in GTD, also had nose damage. That pretty much took it out of the running. And then the number 18 car, which was, I think, leading in LMP2, actually spun going into turn 1 from the race lead. So just drama all over the place here in the finish of this race. So Matt Campbell was now driving the 6 car for Penske Porsche, and his teammate Nasir in the 7 manages to get by him for the overall race lead. Campbell tries to fight back, but to no avail, and the 7 car leads. And then the 60 car of Tom Blomqvist catches up to Campbell for second and takes it with just over 5 minutes left, but was unable to catch the number 7 car, and Felipe Nasr brings the 7 car home for the overall win in the Rolex 24 for the second year in a row. So your GTP winner, GT prototype in this case, is the number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsport machine. 1 second, and I'll give you the driver names. Let's go over to the IMSA app. So for Porsche Penske Motorsport, your overall winners in the 7 car is Nick Tandy, Felipe Nasr, and Lawrence Van Thor. Finishing runner-up on the podium was Acura Meyer Shank Racing with Curb Ajanian, with Felix Rosenquist, Colin Brown, Scott Dixon, and Tom Blomqvist. Yeah, a couple of IndyCar drivers in that lineup. And then rounding out the podium was the other Porsche Penske machine, the number 6 car, featuring Matt Campbell, Matteo Gemini, and Kevin Estre. In LMP2, the winners was the number 8 Tower Motorsports machine, featuring John Ferrano, Sebastian Alvarez, Job Van Utea, and Sebastian Bourdais. There's another familiar open wheel superstar. They were the LMP2 winners. Finishing runner-up in LMP2 was United Autosports USA, with drivers James Allen, Rasmus Lynn, Paul DeResta, and Daniel Goldberg. And then rounding out the podium for LMP2 was Riley, featuring Felipe Massa, former Formula 1 driver, Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, and Josh Burdon. Your GTD Pro winners, which is, of course, LMP2 means Le Mans Prototype 2, Class 2. And then you have GTD, which is GT Daytona. And GTD Pro is the number 65 card for Ford Multimatic Motorsports, featuring Christopher Miles, Frederick Vervish, and Dennis Olsen. Runner-up was Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller Motorsports, featuring Daniel Gadella, Alexander Sims, and Antonio Garcia. And then rounding out the podium for GTD Pro, the other Ford Multimatic Motorsports machine, featuring Austin Cindric, Mike Rockenfeller, and Sebastian Priol. Yeah, Cindric was one of 2 full-time Cup drivers that were in the field in this race, the other being Shane Van Gisbergen. And then GTD, which is basically the Pro-Am class, Um, the winners of that was the number 13 car for AWA Racing, featuring Marvin Kirchhofer, Lars Kern, Ore Fondani, and Matthew Bell. Runner-ups in GTD were Wright Motorsports, featuring Ekayan Guven, Adam Edelson, Tom Sargent, and Elliott Skier. And then rounding out the podium was Harder Racing teams, Mattia Drudy, Tom Gamble, Casper Stevenson, and Zachary Robicon. And that's your podium finishers for the Rolex 24 in all 4 classes. So, as for my final rating for the Rolex 24 at Daytona, first one of the year, it's actually a pretty solid race. I enjoyed it for the most part, the parts that I was able to watch. There were some lulls in the action, but you're going to get that in a 24-hour race. Pretty big crash in the middle of it, right as they got to nighttime. Some drama between various teams and drivers, which over the course of a long race like this, you're going to get some tempers flaring at times. And you had some good racing, and we had some good racing near the end in terms of the battles for the win. No photo finishes like we had seen in the past couple of years. But, overall, this was still a solid race. IMSA, right now, they're at the top of their game. There are some things that they do need to iron out a little bit, like the cautions, how they work the cautions. That needs to be straightened up a little bit. But other than that, not really any complaints for the Rolex 24. So I'm going to give it a solid 7 on the fuel gauge. So a 7 out of 10 is what I'll give the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And I realized because this is a crown jewel, I should have put the crown over the fucking race. I'll have to do another thumbnail here in a minute and replace the old one. Or update the thumbnail I got. Oh well. It's been a minute. But anywho, that's going to do it for tonight's review of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. First race of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season. I believe the next review on the fuel is going to be March the 2nd with the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, the IndyCar series premiere. And then after that, the next one will be the Thermal Club IndyCar GP. Where's the 12 Hours of Sebring? There it is. So the next race review will be the Firestone GP of St. Petersburg on March the 2nd. And then the next one after that will be the Mobile One 12 Hours of Sebring on March the 15th. So, bit of a gap between race reviews. No reviews in the month of February because fuck NASCAR. And that's what I got to say about that. But anywho, that's going to do it for tonight's edition of The Fuel, the first one of the new year. And hopefully it'll be a good year of racing. And I won't have to worry about that stupid fucking playoff bullshit this year because I am washing my hands of that. So, thank you very much for watching my first ever IMSA review here on The Fuel. And we'll do it again in about a month and a half. But until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. See you later. Hey, what's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan letting you know that tonight's video was sponsored by Reaper Apparel Company. By clicking on the affiliate link down below in the description box, you'll be able to browse through many of their different wares, such as hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and other cool items. When you place an order and you go to checkout, be sure to type in the code PackerMan and you'll be able to save 10% off of your order. Reaper Apparel Company. Apparel to die for. Hey ladies and germs, just want to say thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and also check out my other channels, Isaac the Survivalist and Our Honor Defend Archives, if you're a Buckeye fan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.